Hi guys, and welcome to episode 10 of Tiger Heart Chats. We are so happy to have you here today listening to this fantastic podcast. I can't believe we've got to episode 10. I've got a really cool and interesting guy for you today. He is the founder and CEO of a fantastic company called PromoVeritas. Please welcome to the stage, Jeremy Stern.
Hello, indeed, and good to be here. And you're doing great work and bringing interesting companies to the public's attention.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. So you are a very interesting chap. Your PR agent has told me lots about you, so I'm really excited to get you on this fantastic moment in history. There's a couple of people that are listening to this who probably don't know much about you. It'd be great to get a brief about who you are and where you're from.
All right. Well, I'm a Londoner. I'm a marketeer by trade. So I've spent the last 30 years working in the marketing industry, both for major brands in the supermarket environment, so Tesco, Unilever, Coca-Cola. And then about 16, 17 years ago, I set up my own business based on the gaps I saw in the industry, and I've been running that ever since. We're fairly unique. Channel 4 on a recent program that featured us described me as a cross between Willy Wonka and the Easter Bunny.
So tell us about PromoVeritas.
Well, it means truth in promotions. Have you ever entered a prize draw or a competition that you might have seen online or in a magazine, and you wonder whether the prize is ever actually awarded, or if it is, maybe it goes to the chairman's daughter? If you have, then that's pretty common. And in the past, that's probably the case. It would go to a draw that perhaps wasn't entirely fairly done. PromoVeritas is all about correcting that. It's about making sure that you can have absolute confidence that the prizes that are offered are actually awarded fairly, randomly, and securely. So what we do is we pick the winners. That is basically our job. We will get the data from Cadbury, from Pepsi, from Walker's Crisps. We conduct the prize draw and we manage all the prize winners. That's at the base level.
What was the stimulus that got you into creating this business?
Yeah, it's quite tough to start a new company, particularly when it's a totally new market. But it came about really because I've been working for Coca-Cola. I was the European Promotions Director. So I looked after all their promotions that they ran in 9 countries in Europe, things like the Olympics and the World Cup. And we gave away loads of tickets and prizes, etc. And I wasn't really happy how it was done. There were times and situations where I had seen, not just at Coke, but other places, the winners being picked by the office secretary. And maybe it was, oh no, they're from Morrison's. Can't we have a Sainsbury's winner this week? Or they're Welsh, or they live too far away from the airport. And that just isn't right. And I felt that there was a need to provide an easy and fast and effective, cheap service that would correct the tendency of brands to do things badly.
Wow, that's amazing. And how long has the company been going for?
17 years now.
Wow.
And we've grown significantly. The irony is I actually started in the back room of my house all those years ago, and it's a conservatory, and it was freezing cold in the winter, boiling hot in the summer, but my wife wouldn't allow me in the house because I made too much noise. Now, 17 years later, because of lockdown, I'm back in the conservatory baking hot in exactly the same place as before.
How big is the company now?
Well, we're 32 people now. So we've grown significantly. We have several hundred clients. We run about 2,000 campaigns a year for the brands. And the amazing thing is that I never had in the business plan, we have run campaigns last year, at least, in 72 different countries.
That's amazing. So a small business set up in a conservatory in the UK that's now out into 72 different countries around the world. That's incredible.
Yeah, we've been very, very fortunate. A lot of our clients came to us for a single job. It might be Kellogg's for a promotion in the UK, and then their colleagues in France or Germany or Spain heard about it, and they wanted help doing it. And now for people like Energizer, we've just run a campaign in 42 countries just for that one brand. So it means that we have to know the laws, the codes of practice in places from China to Chile, from Austria to Australia, Canada to, I can't think what rhymes with Canada. What does rhyme with, is there a country that rhymes with Canada?
Grenada, I guess, maybe. I mean, that's a city, but...
I don't know. On our weekly quiz that we have in the office on Friday, one of the questions was, what word rhymes with purple? And actually, apparently, technically, there is no single word that rhymes with purple. There you go. Fact of the day.
There we go. Fact of the day. So talk to us about the process. So you set up this business. It's been going for 17 years now. You're very well respected within the circles of communities that you service. I'm a business. I've got this idea. I want you to validate the competition process within this idea. What is the process? How does a business work with you?
Okay, well, our clients range enormously. They are the big boys, so the Unilevers, the Pepsi Colas, the Cadburys, but they're also sole traders and smaller operators. So the first thing that we would ask is, what are they trying to achieve? Prize promotions can be used for many different techniques. If you want to get into a new stockist, you might want to run one. If you're already in stockist in supermarkets or shops and you want to get extra display, that might be your objective, and we can fulfill that. Or you're running an advertising or a door-to-door leaflet campaign or a press ad. You want to increase your response rate. Well, everybody who responds goes into a draw to win a holiday or whatever. That can can double your response rates.
Wow.
Or maybe you're not doing it for the now, you're doing it for the future. So you want to build up a database. So you simply want people to be able to enter your prize draw, and then you'll capture them, and then you can then email them in the future about future activities. Or you're a sponsor of the World Cup, well, bad example now, the Olympics or something, and you want to support that and give away tickets. So we need to know what your objectives are. Then we'll identify the best mechanic for you. So the ones that you'll be familiar with would be a prize draw, where the winner is picked at random. But the other ones might be a competition, a game of skill or judgment. And that can really get the public going. It's take a photograph and the best one will be judged. Or it might be write a poem, or I want to win a holiday because. So we'll guide you on that. And then the other mechanic that I particularly love is the Willy Wonka. Instant win, golden tickets, hidden in packs, or unique code numbers provided with the products. You enter that and then you'll win the prize. Over in PromoVeritas, we've actually taken it further. We've actually used things like light-activated sound chips.
Wow.
Inside the packaging. So for Dairyly, the campaign was, does your pack moo? If so, you've won £10,000. Now, obviously this is a podcast, so I can't show you a visual image, but we recreated a proper Dairyly pack, and inside one of the triangles had a light-activated sound chip. When you opened up the pack at home, it would then go off and tell you, congratulations, you're a winner, phone this number and claim your prize.
That's incredible. And was that technology that you guys developed in-house, or was that... Oh, yes. Brilliant. So you...
Well, actually, no, we actually used a film special effects company to make it. We had to consider all the food safety aspects. Yep. So how safe are the batteries if a child was to try to smash open the case? How long will it last for? Will it cope with the fridge? That sort of thing. And we've recently been involved in a similar project for Pringles, where you would open up your can of Pringles and it would sing a song to you and you'd win a prize.
That's amazing. And so with regards to those ideas, have they come from within the business of your creative ecosystem? Has that come from you, or is that something driven by the client?
We're totally agnostic. We don't. We're not a creative agency as such. Our niche, that's one of the reasons we've been so successful, I suppose, is that we don't tread on people's toes. If the brand doesn't, if a client, your listeners don't have any ideas, we'll help them. If the brand has an agency, Saatchi & Saatchi or whoever, then we'll work with Saatchi & Saatchi and make their ideas come real. And more importantly, they're all about the wackiness of the idea. We're all about the safety, the integrity, and the honesty of it. So the combination of the two works pretty well together.
It sounds like the service that you provide, that industry is very buoyant. It sounds like there's lots of growth. Obviously, you've been running for 17 years. You've got a huge team. You're working in 72 different countries. What challenges have you faced with regards to this service from its inception to its development and to its current delivery?
I suppose there are two. There are business and there are personal. Let's just deal with the personal ones. As in me, I've had to evolve. So I spent 25 years working for major companies. Where you just do your little bit and everything else is done by others. So I never had to worry about VAT or what the process for clarifying expenses were or production or process. I just did my bit and everything else happened. I was a cog in a wheel. When you start your own business, you're every damn cog that you can ever imagine. And I've had to read a number of books. I've been on a few courses to improve my skill set. And it takes a bit of guts to do different things that you're out of your comfort zone in. So that's, I suppose, been the personal challenge, to do a lot more. Now I'm at the stage, ironically, where the big challenge is cutting back and stopping me doing things.
Right.
So I've now got a management team, a senior management team who I trusted to do things, and I've got to step away. And now I'm really not as hands-on as I used to be, and that's quite frustrating. They call me a seagull because I swoop in unawares and then talk about a particular project and then swoosh away rather than being involved on a day-to-day basis.
That's the kind of trait of a lot of people who are entrepreneurial, who have an idea and drive with that idea. As the business starts to kind of grow, you have to know where your skill set fits and where you need to call back on taking the flag in a certain direction, if that makes sense.
My unique abilities is how I look at it, and they are fairly unique and they're not extensive. So I've had to have other people come in to fill those gaps.
Wow. And how long has that been happening for?
Well, two of my senior team have been with me for 7 or 8 years, but just last year in October, I actually recruited a managing director.
Wow. Okay.
Someone who would take over most of the management responsibility on a day-to-day basis. And that's been the hardest part, giving them sufficient room, particularly while they're learning, and not treading on their toes, going behind their back and the like. And I suppose lockdown's actually helped because we haven't been in the office.
Yep.
And so I haven't been around to do that interfering. The interfering has been done via email, which is a lot more restrained and more effort.
Yeah, it's a really beautiful thing to hear from you, being so open about that scenario and how you're coping with it, because there are a lot of people that wouldn't hold back. They would just, because it's so personal to them, they can't identify that kind of overpowering.
Well, in business, we often talk about, oh, it's my baby. Yeah. The business is a member of the family. It's your child. Yeah. And so you want to nurture your child. But on the other hand, and I've got a bunch of children, they end up getting boyfriends or girlfriends, and they start to create their own life. And I'm obviously at the stage where my business has now got a partner. It's got my managing director, and I have to let them create their own little world. Hopefully it's a world that is familiar to me and that is based on my principles. And I won't let it veer too far away. But yeah, if they want to go down a particular path, I have to let them.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is challenging, particularly at the moment, because our income has been hit by coronavirus. During the summer, we do quite well with sports-related activities.
Yep.
So we had lots of campaigns lined up with Pepsi linked to the Champions League, with Toyota linked to the Olympics, with Whole Earth linked to the Olympics and other sporting events. And all of those got canned. So we've had a major drop in income. And unfortunately, half the team had to go on furlough. Right. Virtually all of them are now back now.
Did you foresee that happening, or was it a shock?
Well, unfortunately, on March the 14th, which was a week before lockdown, I actually got coronavirus.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So for 2.5 weeks, I didn't foresee anything. I was completely out of it. At home, it didn't get to my breathing, but I had all the other symptoms: fever, temperature, ups, downs, whatever. And so my MD made major decisions while I was away. The unfortunate thing, we had somebody starting with us on the Monday, the 16th of March or whatever, and she started for 5 hours, and then we had to terminate her, or the decision was to terminate her because we didn't see the future for that particular role under coronavirus.
I'm ever so sorry to hear that.
The shortest length of duration. We paid her month's notice. We honoured all of our contractual obligations, but I wasn't really involved at that point. But obviously, I came back as soon as I was well, and we've trodden a good path, and now we're starting to see an upswing in business.
I've noticed that as well. I mean, from my point of view, I run a small business. Tiger Heart is, my baby. It's just me. Over the winter, I could see that there was going to be some changes. So I made the necessary arrangements to mitigate the risk that we had so we weren't super exposed. But I have noticed in the last month and a half that things are starting to grow again. And there is optimism, which is a good thing. I know we're going to be focusing on a lot of business things that you've been involved with, but I just find this discussion about COVID-19 quite interesting. And I'd love to get your thoughts on what having COVID-19 was like for you as an experience.
Well, I didn't know I had it for a while. It so happens that my son-in-law and daughter are living with us at the moment in between houses, and he's a GP. And we both got this temperature that weekend, and we just thought it was a temperature. Even though he's a GP, he didn't spot the symptoms. And then on the Sunday and the Monday, both of us got simultaneously worse. Wow. And we both realized that we probably had it. Our wives moved out into spare rooms, and we just isolated ourselves separately. And it was very annoying for that first week. Right. I really don't remember an awful lot. After the first week, I was better, and I could feel my mental improvement was okay, but physically I was a wreck. I remember walking up, going to the toilet, and going back because I had to lie down. I was so tired. The lethargy was intense.
Wow.
And it was obviously a little bit worrying, but my wife fed me, left the food outside the door, and we obeyed all the rules. And I was able to get better within, 10 days after that. But there's still a latent feeling of I was lucky, because in my community, we lost about 6 or 7 people that I know through the virus. Yes, absolutely.
What did it feel like in comparison to other illnesses that you may have had?
I'm very lucky. I haven't had any major illnesses. So other than flu, it felt very strange because it was hot and cold. I remember the switching. You would get very cold, so you'd go under the covers and keep warm, and then you'd get absolutely baking hot and sweaty, such that my sheets were changed twice a day.
Wow.
So it was that contrast was very odd. No appetite. So I lost about 4-5 kilos in weight. And for me, I knew that I carried guilt because I'd been in the office on the Friday, with my team, and I was petrified the following week that I'd given any of my team the virus. Yeah. But I didn't. Nobody actually caught it. We were lucky, and my team closed the office on the Wednesday that week anyway, earlier than lockdown.
Were you thinking about work whilst you were going through this traumatic experience?
Oh, I'd like to say I was thinking about it. I was sitting there on my laptop fielding all my emails. No, certainly not that first week. But in the second week, yes, we got a bedside table, set me up with my laptop and 2 screens, and I was able to do it. But the first week, the brain power wasn't there.
Right. Okay.
Absolutely. And I can't remember very much of it. No, not even anything that I watched on TV or whatever. It was certainly a very interesting experience, and it has, I suppose, helped me with some of the things that we've been doing, because I'm a trustee, a governor of the Royal Harefield and Brompton Hospital.
Okay.
And that has been through an amazing time during COVID. And so it helped me to understand what they were going through and the risks that the staff that I helped to govern take every day.
Amazing. Well, like, I'm so glad you got through it, because you wouldn't have been on this call otherwise,
No, that's true. Yeah.
That was a bit morbid. So let's go back to your career. You were at Coca-Cola for how long?
2.5 years.
Okay. And what was your role there?
Coca-Cola has two sides to it. One is the side that you will see on the bottles. It's the bottler. It's a franchise operation, and in every country there is a separate company. It's called the bottler. But the master company that makes the magic, the black stuff that actually then is added to the water, is the Coca-Cola company, and that runs all the major TV campaigns and the strategy. And that's the company I work for. Based in Hammersmith, but covering Northwest Europe. And my role was to run promotions and make sure that the countries were all behaving themselves, following plans, utilizing all the assets that we had, like the Olympics, and signing off. I think anything over $50,000 had to be approved by me in the center. But it was a slightly annoying role, had all that power, but actually no real influence. You go off and visit the team in France, and they'd look after you, treat you, and they'd say yes, yes, yes. But you knew that after you left, they just carried on doing their own thing.
I guess that happens to a lot of big brands when the teams are so kind of convoluted and there's so much thought going in different directions. It's really hard to manage that, I'm assuming.
It is, but I'll give any of your listeners a tip. If you're offered one of those roles, the first question you have to ask is, where's the money? All right. I didn't have a budget.
Right.
The budget was all held, quite rightly, I suppose, by the countries, because they were the ones doing the selling. But if you don't have a budget, or even if it's just to sweeten things, then why would the countries listen to you? Exactly. They're the ones responsible for the sales. They're the ones that are going to get hit if it doesn't work, and it's their budget. So if you want to take a central role, make sure you have a central budget. Otherwise, you will be of no consequence. But it was very interesting, and it was a time before the euro. Yep. So I literally had 8 different wallets, because I would do a tour of all my 8 countries, going in a circle around Europe on a plane, and I had to deal with all my expenses and currencies. And I had eight separate wallets that I would pull out for the Danish krona, for the French franc, for the German mark, whatever it was.
That's mental.
Yeah, it was. So I was traveling probably about 2 weeks out of 4.
You touched on that thing, if you want to have that type of role, always ask yourself, where is the money? What was your kind of key frustration? Was it that you were telling them to do stuff and they weren't doing it? Or was it that you just felt like you were kind of part of something that wasn't actually moving in directions that you thought, if that makes sense?
There were lots of upsides to the role, but you've asked about the frustrations. I would say it was actually related to typical stereotypes of national identities, because the French were the most charming, the most delightful, but they were the most awkward at the end of the day and the most reluctant to change. It was definitely their opinion that counted and nobody else's. The Germans would tell it to your face. But the French were much more subtle. The Spanish have their own national peculiarities, and you do understand a little bit about stereotypes. They do seem to have a basis in reality, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Or pleased.
Well, I mean, that's the beauty of working when you work worldwide and understanding the kind of way people are in different territories. Like I find that really exciting. Doing business in China is completely different to doing business in France, for example, because as people, they're so different. Same in Japan, America.
Yeah, the challenge is when you're Coca-Cola and you own the rights to the World Cup. So you think Atlanta, the HQ, thought that, oh, well, everyone will want to do the same thing. Vanilla will work. But actually, the German approach to football is very different to the Spanish approach to football. Right. And so one promotion, one campaign across multiple countries doesn't always work.
I mean, that kind of sounds like that could be quite exciting.
Well, it's a difficulty when you're in the middle, because I was the meat and the sandwich. Atlanta was saying, oh, let's all do the same thing across the whole of Europe. It's homogenous. You're Europe anyway. And the countries were going, no, we're France, and we actually have different views about football than the Germans. And I'm having to bat those two things off. while still maximizing the assets that we actually have as a company.
Yeah.
And I found the same in Sega, because I had a European marketing director role for Sega, the games company. And again, those same business stereotypes did come through. The French were a nightmare. The Germans were just themselves. And most of the other countries were very compliant.
Let's touch on Sega. So when in your career did you start working for Sega? Was that before Coca-Cola or after?
No, it was after Coca-Cola.
Right.
The Coca-Cola role was Northwest Europe. Then they had a whole rejig, and they said, we're not going to have Northwest and Southwest and East-West. We'll have just Europe, the whole of Europe. And Jeremy would like to make you new media director. And it was 60 countries.
Wow.
And I knew nothing about new media, because that's what everyone called this internet thing 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I had a young family, and I just felt I've done 2 weeks out of 4 traveling already. With so many more countries, I'm going to be stuffed. So I actually was offered a role by Sega, and I took it because that was only a lot less traveling and a much narrower focus. Okay. So it was the games company. They'd launched the year beforehand the Dreamcast, which was the most advanced games console, the only one that provided internet interconnectivity. And amazing games like Crazy Taxi, Sonic the Hedgehog, Shenmue. And my job was to market it. And here's a lesson for your listeners. I was sold a pup. I was told, yeah, you're coming on, great time. We've got a £30 million marketing budget across Europe. Well, they did. The problem was they'd spent 27 million of it on sports sponsorship before I started.
Right.
So they sponsored Arsenal. If you remember, Sega and Dreamcast were on the red shirts.
Yeah, I remember that.
They sponsored Saint Etienne and Desportivo. In every major country, we had major teams. And the more successful Arsenal were in the European Cup, the more money we had to pay. So the less money I had to actually run marketing campaigns, because it all went to the football clubs. So that was indeed a major challenge. And meanwhile, we were selling at $199, and so was Sony. And at Christmas, unfortunately, Sony decided to slash the price to £69.
Right.
And Japan, who controlled everything, would not allow us to change our price. Right. So we were selling at Christmas for $199. Sony was selling at $69. Who do you think came out top?
Were you at Sega when the Dreamcast disappeared?
Yes.
Right.
I was the last man out the door, pretty much. Chief executive got terminated fairly early on. And then the Japanese started to take more and more control. And then Mr. Miyake came over from Japan. And I remember sitting in a meeting room, he said, "You are terminated."
And how long were you at Sega for?
About 18 months.
Okay. Was it a struggle from beginning to end, or did you start with optimism and then it slowly?
Started with huge optimism, absolutely, because we had a great product, and in theory, some of those tools with the sports activities. But what I soon realized was that having Arsenal on board is only good if you have the money to leverage it.
Yeah.
They weren't even selling our products in the Arsenal shop. No one had actually thought about how to take it down to a sales level and earn some money back out of the deals.
Right.
So there was a lot to get done. The trade was pretty supportive until the £69 came out.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And no matter how good your games are, you're going to get trashed. And so Sega pulled the plug worldwide on their business. They've returned now, but only as a publisher. And now you can play Sonic on your PlayStation.
I grew up in that era of the Nintendo versus Sega world, and that's now changed to it becoming PlayStation versus Xbox, which is really interesting.
But I found out at my son's wedding last year that he was incredibly popular at school. And I remember him asking often to come to my office because he said he liked to have a look around, etc. And I'd take him to the office every now and again. What I never realized was that he was actually sneaking out of the office some of the demo games that I had in a cupboard in my office. And he'd sell them at school or loan them to his friends to boost his own popularity. That came out in his wedding speech for the first time ever.
Wow, okay. With regards to this Sega experience, what did you learn from that?
I learned that rank in a Japanese company, do not be fooled by titles. We had a French chief executive. I was a British marketing director. We had a British finance director. And then we had an operations manager. That was the title, who was Japanese.
Right.
An operations manager doesn't sound very important. However, in a Japanese company, title is not everything. It's that person was the number one contact back to Japan. And they would stay in the office till midnight in order to communicate Japanese local work time, everything that had gone on during the day. Right. It was a bit like having a spy in the camp. And then you'd end up coming back in the morning and there was an email that contradicted your own efforts that you'd even been thinking about the day before.
That must have been a huge mental challenge for you.
Yes, it was. It took a bit of getting used to, but you learn how to adjust and to make people get a broader engagement of your team, because you never know how it's going to go back to the ultimate leaders in Japan.
Right, I see. Wow. Okay. So after Sega, was that
That's when I started PromoVeritas.
Brilliant.
I took away a redundancy package. I had a bit of a buffer, and I sat and thought, right, do I want to go back into another role? And however senior you are, you're liable to get the chop, or do I want to take a punt? And I took a punt, and I was lucky that I found a niche.
Brilliant.
In the UK, there are about 12,000 creative agencies, the ones that do the creative ideas that come up with ad campaigns or whatever. There's only one or two of companies like us.
That's amazing.
And so it's a nice little niche.
Absolutely. Talk to us about your first project at PV.
My first project was actually for Coca-Cola. Ironically.
That's interesting.
So there's a lesson for you. Use your little black book of contacts. Absolutely, and I make no shame of it. The people that I knew, I immediately contacted and said, "Will you give me a go?" It felt a little bit demeaning. The first project was for £250, and getting through the Coca-Cola bureaucracy to be an approved supplier was incredibly difficult. But I remember fighting my way and going back to see the people that one or two of them were still there that I used to know, and winning business. And in fact, one of our early jobs was giving away Wayne Rooney's Aston Martin.
Wow. Yeah,
Coca-Cola did a deal, and there was an on-pack offer with a code, and we picked the winner. And my job was to ring up this woman who was a 24-year-old living in Solihull, to tell her that she'd won this amazing $100,000 car. But we made sure that she had insurance, so we paid for that for the first year, and also she went on a 2-day driving course at Aston Martin. Well, the worst thing you want is a news story: prize winner wraps herself around a lamppost.
Absolutely.
So we did that. We found out 6 months later she sold the car.
Oh, okay.
Quite rightly. I found out something, that Aston Martin engraved the name of the first owner on the inside of the door.
Wow.
On the door frame.
So that's a Wayne Rooney.
That car had Wayne Rooney's name on it.
So if you're a Wayne Rooney fan and you've got the money, that's the ultimate kind of gift.
Yes. Well, it is, unless you're, as she was, sitting on a terraced house in Solihull, worried about it being nicked every day.
Amazing. What sort of feelings did you have with regards to that first project that you did for PromoVeritas?
I think I've got something here. I felt that I was fulfilling a need, and that gave me the inspiration to take it forward. Don't get me wrong, at that time, all I thought that I was going to be doing was picking prize winners and maybe judging some competitions. But over time, we've expanded, and that's another lesson for you. Listen to your customers. If they ask you for something, just say yes, and then work it out afterwards. That's how we got into writing terms and conditions. Then people said, "Oh, well, can you do it for our business in France?" And I went, "Yes." And I went, "Oh my God, how do I do it?" And then I found a way of doing it. Right. And then people asked us, could we do crazy things with packs? So we did the Dairy Lee one and other talking packs. And now what we do is we do controlled prize placement. CPP. So we actually do the golden tickets for things like Cadbury cream eggs, and we drive around the country and we reverse shoplift those Cadbury eggs into supermarkets without anyone seeing or knowing.
Wow.
And then people will go up, innocently buy the product, take it home, and lo and behold, they've now won up to £10,000.
So just talk me through that concept, reverse shoplift.
Well, we've done it for crisps, we've done it for chocolate bars, but let's stick with Cadbury cream eggs, which we've done for 8 years. We go to the factory, Cadbury cream eggs, out of hours. Then under hygienic conditions, we insert a golden ticket into, I think it was 800 eggs, right. Rewrap them such that you wouldn't know from the outside. Then we take the control of those eggs, and then my team will drive around the country with the eggs in cooler bags, and we will go into a shop, and we will then leave one in the shop and walk out, take a picture of it for our records, and then the consumer will go in, they buy it, and inside, when they get it home, they find this golden ticket with a unique code. They call us up, we then check the unique code, confirm it's valid, and then we issue them a check.
That's amazing. I mean, the science behind that just sounds, I mean, it's just fascinating.
Well, the organisation, the logistics. Our worst one was when Britain had the Olympics 2012, and it was Cadbury again, and they wanted to have local winners of tickets to the Olympics in every area of the UK. So our brief was in every single postcode area, of which there are something like 500 in the country, and the Republic of Ireland, and Northern Ireland, and the Shetland Islands, and the Isle of Man, and Channel Islands, we had to visit. So I created a team of 20 people, hired them cars, drove them around. They took ferries and planes. And in every single postcode area, so EN we did it, in AB we did it, whatever letters of the alphabet, there were at least 2 Cadbury chocolate bars that entitle you to win.
Wow.
That was quite a logistical campaign.
I can imagine.
But the other fun parts are we've done it abroad. So I tend to cherry pick now the ones I like. So I've been to Greece and Cyprus and Crete. So you fly in, you do your job, stay overnight, take a plane, go to the next island. So that was a nice one. Another one was Norway. So a brand wanted us to do this CPP in Norway. If you know anything about Norway, it's a very long, thin country. Yeah. Driving from top to bottom is just really not possible. But you take the Hurtigruten, which is basically a ferry, right. And it goes up the coast for 14 days. And that's what I did. I booked a place on this ferry, slept on board. In the morning, we'd stop in a place. I'd get off, take the bicycle that they loan you, cycle off to a shop, drop off my chocolate bar, cycle back, sit in the sauna, -2 degrees outside, plus 30 degrees inside.
That's awesome.
Repeat, rinse, eat, and do again.
Just with regards to the security measures that you have to take there, because, I mean, you're one guy with these winning tickets on a bike riding around Norway.
Yes.
How do you mitigate the risk there?
The risk on the bicycle, I can't. I don't think I probably did mitigate. I probably only took one chocolate bar on each trip, or 2 maybe, to do 2 stores, and the rest we keep in a portable safe in my cabin. Right. But in general, we're all about risk. We call ourselves promotional bodyguards. Okay. So we have to be aware of the risk. Now, number one is the trustworthiness of the people that I use. Yep. So for high value tickets, anything over 5,000, either I or one of my senior team will do. That's the rule. We don't allow anybody else to do it. Below 5,000, we have a team of auditors that we use, are up and down the country, that we've recruited. Most of them we recruited from an advert, wait for this, in the Magistrates Gazette. Because if you want trustworthy people who care about their reputations, you're not going to employ 21-year-old students. Yep. But magistrates, by definition, are bulwarks of the community. Yeah? Yeah. And so that's where we recruited most of our people. So if we have a job in Edinburgh, we use Elizabeth, who's based in Edinburgh. But we never tell her what's inside her egg. Right. She could have a 100-pound egg. She could have a 500-pound egg. We never tell her. Right. We dictate which store she goes in, and then we control it, and we ask for photographs to make sure it's been done. And we have other security checks that we put in place that if I told you now, they wouldn't be very secure.
No, of course. Going back to that reverse shoplift concept, so when those chocolate bars or products are placed, does the store know that's happening?
No.
Wow.
No. In fact, 2 weeks ago on a Friday night, I was having dinner with the family, and I started to get texts from people to say, you're on TV. And it was Channel 4 that were repeat showing something that's been on twice already, but we didn't know it was happening a third time. Yeah. It's a show called Cadbury, The Secrets of Chocolate.
Right.
And it features a good segment all about our work. And they filmed me doing a drop.
Wow.
So they actually supplied me with a pinhole camera that went in my button on a jacket.
Yeah.
Real James Bond stuff.
Yeah.
And they had another of their people inside the shop also with a pinhole camera, but watching me. And they filmed me as I went in around Abingdon, I think it was, dropping off eggs. So they had the long shot and a close-up shot and then my secret shot from my chest as we dropped off an egg. And then we were very lucky. Within a few minutes, my office rang me to say that they'd had a caller.
Right.
Somebody actually gone in, bought my egg, without knowing it, obviously, and claimed the prize. So the film crew went off and interviewed this kid.
That's amazing. So you technically are the MI6 of the chocolate world.
More like Willy Wonka. But yes, yeah, we operate in the secret realms. But it's secret, but it's designed to be there to protect you.
Yeah.
Because we sign a certificate at the end for Cadbury or whoever to say, you wanted 800 eggs, we have delivered 800 eggs. You can be very happy, Mr. Client, and hence the consumer, that everything has been done properly.
Amazing.
Sometimes we do it at a factory. We stick it down the line in a factory. But we always have a risk, certainly with high value ones, that those products never get out to the shops.
Right.
We've had lorries that have crashed and burnt. We've had factories that have been destroyed in fires. And so doing it in the shops directly is the safest way.
Awesome. And so the processes that you undertake now, they've all been derived from the experience over the last 17 years, I'm assuming. There must have been loads of...
There's no rule book here. There's no playbook that someone else has written. We've basically created it for ourselves. But what we do is we follow the principles of the Advertising Standards Authority. That's the regulator for the marketing industry.
Right.
And they have a rule book. And their rule book says if it's a prize draw, winners should be selected under independent supervision. So that's one of the reasons we exist.
Yeah.
If it's a competition and entries and winners are subject to subjective interpretation, i.e. a photograph or a poem, then at least one of the judges must be independent. So we act as the independent judge. Right. And then lastly, for instant wins, it says, and scratch cards, it says, if you're doing that, then you need to have an independent audit to show that all the prizes offered have been delivered. Amazing. So again, that's our role. There have been cons, there have been scams where the people have advertised amazing prizes never to deliver them. In Italy, if you want to run a prize promotion, you have to go to the government 14 days in advance. You have to show them your terms and conditions. You have to give them an insurance bond in case you go bust before you can award the prize.
Right.
And the public official has to be there at the draw because of all the scams that they had. In the UK, we're very, very liberal, and I'm determined that we continue to avoid having excess regulation.
Jeremy, this whole story you've given us has just been so fascinating. So fascinating.
You haven't asked me about the best prizes we've ever given away.
What have been the best prizes that you've been given away?
I think the most amazing one was probably a trip into space.
What?
Yeah, for Guinness in Nigeria and other countries in Africa, it was a winner trip on the Virgin Galactica.
Wow.
So that was an interesting one. That was send in your lids, codes that were printed inside caps, and then one lucky winner would be picked. And we picked that winner. They have not, and that was 4 or 5 years ago. They have yet to fly into space yet. Right. They're still on standby. I think they're probably getting to the age where they're probably beyond the limit of going. I think they were 55 when we picked them.
Right.
So I don't know whether over 60 are allowed. I think another one was win a tattoo of your granny. That was for Tyrrell's Crisp. Very good product. And they ran that one. Or they had win your weight in prawns. Anything to be a bit cheeky. Another weird one was you're guaranteed a white Christmas for TK Maxx, the retailer.
Oh my God.
So we had a film production crew that would come round to your house and lay down a whole field in front of you of white snow with trees and lights and the whole, and do it up, make you the pride of your street. So that was a good one.
Yeah.
And in May this year, we gave away £1 million live on air on Heart FM.
One of the things you do instigate are dreams, people that are engaging with brands in a way that inspires them. What have you said no to? Some of the prizes are actually, we will make your dreams come true. And that's what the promoter wants. And they leave it relatively open. And They say, if you're the winner, we'll discuss with you what you want your dream to be, up to a maximum, say, £5,000 it might be. Yeah. And some of those dreams have been a little bit weird. One winner wanted us to build them an S&M basement dungeon. Unfortunately, the client saw that there might be some negative public relations aspects for that and declined. It gave them the cash instead. Right. And then what they did with it was obviously their own concern. That's amazing.
I think another dream was for Canon cameras. They ran a campaign which was basically take a year off and travel around the world for a year, and we will fund you.
That's awesome.
So that was you created your own trip. We worked with you on your first month and gave you the money for that. And then you went off. And then because we knew that people changed their minds, basically every month we topped up a travel account for them, and they could then dictate what and where they went. The only requirement was every month they had to send us a video that we published as to where they were and what their exploits were. Amazing. So, and this couple had a whole year abroad.
Wow. Just taking pictures and sharing the wonderful delights that they found. That's amazing.
But the other bit I love is that often we give ordinary prizes, but they're to extraordinary people. We find out afterwards. We pick them at random, but we had one which was a kitchen makeover, which is a nice prize, but nothing special. But it went to the family of a disabled child who actually loved to cook, but was suffering because their kitchen was a normal kitchen and he wasn't able in a wheelchair to have full access to the cooker, the oven, the hobs. Right. So when they won the prize for the makeover, we were able to do it suitable for him. And that was a good feeling.
I bet.
Yeah. We've had lots of cases where people have never been abroad, don't even own a passport, and they've won trips to Las Vegas or to Vietnam or places. So that causes mild panic. Sometimes they want the money instead.
And do you adhere to that request?
A lot will depend on the nature of the prize. Right. If it's like win tickets to the World Cup, then those tickets have already been bought. The hotels have been paid for as part of a bundle. So the answer is no. Right, if it's just a standard winner holiday and we haven't gone out of our way and bought it yet, then we'll talk to the client always and say, come on, you want a happy winner. How about giving them cash?
Wow. Okay, so Jeremy, we're coming to the end of this call, which is a bit annoying because I'm just getting whisked away in all of these fantastic, awesome, energizing stories. So we'll have to get you in on another show in the future if possible. Well, just one more question before we go into the outro. What's next for you guys? PromoVeritas has been around 17 years. You're in 72 different countries. The business is flourishing. You've had to change as a person and also as an entity within your business because of how it's growing. What's the future for PromoVeritas with regards to you specifically?
All right. In terms of the business, we are looking at overseas expansion by actually opening an office abroad. Right. So we've serviced all of our clients currently from our London office. Yeah. But there is an opportunity for us to open an office in Paris. Wow. And also I've been over to the States to discuss with a company about a possible merger, acquisition, whatever, in America. Right. They do something similar to us, not quite the same, and coming together would be quite a useful thing for our clients. That's Many exciting. Of them are American.
Right, I see.
I think the other area for me is stepping back even more so from the day-to-day and dealing with the bigger issues at hand. So I'm much more into education. The way that we sell is by telling people that there's a need for our services. They don't even know that there are rules. How many of your listeners have heard of the Advertising Standards Authority? How many know about the CAP code? How many know how to implement GDPR properly? So I'm much more of an evangelist really about the principle of compliance than I am about the selling of my company. Right. So I think that's the way forward for us. Oh, and the last area is television. Right. The whole business is about integrity and trust. So we spotted an opportunity a few years ago to work with the TV companies to help them to put trust back into the phone-in industry that was a little bit blighted by a few disasters. Yep. So often now when you hear and the votes have been independently verified, it will be me or one of my team behind the scenes in the studios checking the votes. It might be for Eurovision, it might be Strictly Come Dancing. For 9 years, we've overseen the National Television Awards that have over 10 million votes. Wow. And our job is to make sure that those are all genuine and that everything is legitimate. And often it's not.
Right. You have to step in and move quite quickly to make sure that it is.
Absolutely. We have certain protocols and systems in place. So for certain awards, we've seen a huge influx of votes all of a sudden coming from China for one particular actor. And you wonder, really? Do they even get that show in China? And why all of a sudden? And then you start looking at the IP addresses and there seems to be a pattern. And then you look at the frequency with which the votes are coming in, and it's every 3 seconds there's a new vote. Every 3 seconds, 3 seconds. Well, human beings are not that regular. You know, our keyboards, fingers get tired. It must be a bot. And so we have to eliminate certain numbers of votes in order to make sure it's fair and that the outsiders aren't unduly influencing things.
Amazing. Well, on that note, the future of PromoVeritas is looking great. And it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Jeremy, I'm sure there's people that are listening that want to get in contact with you. What's the best way to get in contact with you?
Well, I'm very happy to have what we call through a drive-in chat, get some inspiration, understand about the rules. Promotions are a great tool for building customer base and customer sales, but they do have to be done right. The email would be info@promoveritas.com.
Is there any social handles that people can get you on, like Twitter or Instagram?
Yeah, #PromoVeritas will get to us. We're on LinkedIn. We're on Twitter.
Brilliant. I really appreciate your time today, and I'm sure everyone that's listening would have got so much value out of such a wonderful discussion that we've just had. For those of you that are listening, thank you so much for your time. I hope wherever you are at the moment that you're safe and sound. Whatever you're doing, please be good.